Welcome back, my friends, to your recaps!
Yes, it shows. Come on.
On a bright sunny morning, Iris and her boyfriend Paul are heading to a prestigious Skyview hotel for their anniversary. Iris persistently asks Paul for clues about where they're going, but he refuses to budge. When they arrive at the destination, Iris is pleasantly surprised to see that the hotel has already opened. Paul reveals that today is its official opening and that he managed to get tickets. They take a photo at the entrance and head toward the elevator, which to Iris's dismay is very crowded. Still, she goes in anyway. The elevator attendant entertains the crowd, telling them the hotel is 494 feet tall, made with green force concrete walls and steel, and that the entire project was completed in just 5 months. At the top, the view is magnificent, accompanied by live singers and a variety of cuisine. Paul approaches an employee and says he has a reservation under Campbell, but after checking the list, the employee can't find the name and asks them to leave. To avoid being kicked out, Iris suggests they should pretend like one of the guests. Looking outside, she tells Paul how happy she is to be with him, and when she tries to pin a rose on his suit, she pricks her finger on some thorns. Then Paul offers to get them some champagne, while Iris, feeling nauseous, excuses herself and finds a quiet room to compose herself. Meanwhile, a cork from the champagne hits a chandelier dangling above, and a piece falls, and making a crack on the glass. A few moments later, one of the singers enters the room to check on her son. Noticing Iris with her hand clutching her stomach, the singer gently asks how far along she is. Hesitantly, Iris replies, "A couple of months." Admitting she hasn't told her boyfriend yet, the singer encourages her to share the news, saying that if he truly loves her, he'll accept it. Iris thanks her. She rejoins Paul, who then proposes to her. Overjoyed, Iris also confesses she's pregnant. Paul is thrilled. Just then, Iris notices a boy with a coin trying to throw it off the edge. Security intervenes, warning him, but the mischievous child throws it anyway. The coin ends up jamming an exhaust fan. Later, Iris and Paul go inside and begin dancing. Unbeknownst to them, the coin causes some shrews to come loose from the supporting beam, leading to a gas. Then, the dance floor's glass shatters, and guests fall to their death. Iris tries to save her fiancé, but he too falls. Chaos erupts in the restaurant as guests scramble to escape. The vent releases the gas and spit out the coin. Moments later, the entire restaurant catches fire. The singer dies, but manages to save her son by placing him in a box. As Iris and a few others try to use the stairs, the structure collapses. The elevator lady suggests heading to the elevator, but on the way, Iris is knocked down. And moments later, the others fall as well. Iris sees fire everywhere. The top structure collapses, taking more guests with it. As people cling to what they can, the coin, now on top of the chandelier, falls onto a piano, sealing the fate of the remaining guests, including the boy. Iris then hears a noise. It turns out the singer's son is still alive. She rushes to save him, but sadly, they both die. A woman named Stefani wakes up, screaming from the nightmare during class. The professor, annoyed, asks her to stay behind. It turns out Stefani is the granddaughter of Iris. What baffles her is that she's never met her grandmother, yet she's been having these nightmares for the past 2 months. Her doormate suggests she ask her family about it. The next day, Steph visits home, where her father, Marty, greets her. She quickly gets to the point and asks about her mother's box that had her belongings, an address book, and some phone numbers. Concerned, Marty asks why she needs it. Stefani explains that she wants to find out more about her grandmother, Iris, which strikes Marty as odd. Then her brother Charlie comes downstairs. Steph greets him warmly, but he's cold toward her. Charlie tells their dad he's heading to their cousins. Steph offers to drive him. In the car, Steph questions Charlie's cold behavior, but he turns it around, asking why she's even here, as she only comes home for the holidays. With a sigh, Steph opens up about her recurring nightmare of their grandmother falling to her death, and because of that, she is getting bad grades and is on the verge of losing her scholarship. But her brother brushes it off, saying he too had a dream about a hot dog eating him. They arrive at their cousin's house and greet Eric and Bobby. Julia comes downstairs, gives Steph a brief "Hi," then goes straight to Charlie and asks if his crush, Jenny, said yes. He nods, feeling hurt. Steph laughs awkwardly and asks Charlie why he hasn't told her about his crush. Jenny takes over the conversation, so Steph walks away to find her aunt, Brenda. She asks Brenda where her Uncle Howard is. Brenda steps outside to call him in. A moment later, Howard comes in to greet his niece. Steph once again cuts to the chase and asks about his mother, Iris. Both Brenda and Howard's expressions fall. Steph tells them she's been having recurring nightmares of her grandmother falling from the Skyview Hotel some 50 years ago. Both of them visibly tense up, swallowing hard. When Steph persists, Howard finally opens up. He explains that after their father died, Iris had a complete mental breakdown. From then on, she became obsessed with theorizing millions of ways people could die. The situation got so bad that the state had to intervene and take him and Steph's mother, Darlene, away from Iris. But Iris didn't stop. She started sending them disturbing obituaries about random people and strange letters, which eventually led to them relocating. Steph, curious, asks whether he still has those letters, but Howard simply tells her to forget about that crazy woman. After Howard leaves, Steph pleads with her aunt, who eventually tells her that the letters are in the bottom drawer. Steph retrieves the box and finds an old photo of her grandmother along with an address. She drives through a desolate stretch of woods until she reaches a dilapidated cabin behind a massive gate. At the gate, Steph uses the intercom to tell Iris that she is her granddaughter. Suspicious, Iris instructs Steph to place her phone and all sharp objects in a box at the entrance before entering the house. After complying, the gate opens. Steph walks up to the door. Iris tells Steph to come in slowly. Iris is surprised that Steph actually came to visit. She seems cautious, but pushes a chair out for Steph to sit. She asks about her daughter, Darlene, but Steph replies that her mother left when she was only 10 years old. Steph then reveals the real reason she's there, her recurring nightmare. Iris tells her it is not just a dream, but a premonition Iris had before the disaster. She tried to warn everyone that the hotel's glass floor would collapse. She ended up saving many lives that night, and the hotel eventually closed for safety purpose. However, she adds that death doesn't like being cheated. Over the years, death came back for those who were meant to die at the hotel. It's all confusing to Steph. Iris tells her she's been hiding from death for decades, but 2 months ago, she was diagnosed with cancer. Coincidentally, the same time Steph started having the nightmares. Iris theorizes that her illness might have passed the gift or curse of premonition onto Steph. As Iris takes her book from the table, she accidentally moves the magnifying glass, which begins to burn through the rope holding the plant. Iris hands her a book in which she documented thousands of bizarre ways people could die, and this is how she is able to defeat death at every corner. She urges Steph to stay with her, warning her that death is coming for the family. Iris also notices the magnifying glass burning the rope and tells her granddaughter that the death is even now plotting to kill her. Thinking her grandmother is indeed mentally unwell, Steph leaves the house. As she walks away, Iris appears behind her, holding the book. With a strange intensity, she asks Steph to wait. She wants to prove she's not crazy. Just then, a wind vane comes loose and crashes down, killing Iris instantly. The next day, the entire family gathers for Iris's funeral. Steph tells her father and uncle that just before she died, Iris warned that death is coming for the family. Suddenly, Darlene arrives, making Steph's mood even worse. Steph leaves, and Charlie follows her, urging her to give their mother a chance. But Steph adamantly says that Darlene abandoned. This sparks an argument. Charlie accuses Steph of being emotionally distant ever since she left for college. The following day, Howard hosts a barbecue for the family, but Steph decides to stay home. Bobby begins stacking glasses, but one breaks. A shard ends up embedded in the ice cubes. Later, Darlene joins the gathering. With drinks in everyone's hands, Howard raises a heartfelt toast to the family. Meanwhile, Steph opens her grandmother's book and finds a coin inside. She flips through pages filled with illustrations and notes describing countless ways someone can die, ranging from fires to freak accidents. Howard sees his sister Darlene sitting alone and goes to join her. She wistfully says that his family seems so united while hers has been shattered. Howard gently tells her that everyone deserves a second chance, including her. He offers her a spare key to his home, but she declines, expressing that her children are better off without her. Steph tries calling her cousins, but they don't answer their phones. Meanwhile, Howard gets up to join his sons on the trampoline. Suddenly, Darlene tells her brother to stop and pulls out a rake from underneath the trampoline. Moments later, Steph arrives and surveys the area. When the trampoline breaks, Julia suddenly turns, knocking her glass over. The shard from earlier, which had been on the ice, falls to the ground. As Howard heads over to greet his niece, he steps on the shard. Then the leaf blower machine starts up, killing Howard on the spot. Determined to end the cycle of deaths, Steph refers to Iris's books and finds a person named JB who cheated death. She sticks all of her findings on the wall. She gathers the family in the main room and explains that she found hundreds of obituaries in Iris's notebook. These people were supposed to die at the hotel, but thanks to Iris's premonitions, they survived decades ago. Eventually though, they all died in the same order that Iris had predicted. Since there were so many survivors, death took years to reach them all, with Iris being the last to die. But in reality, she wasn't the last one. There is still one more left. A little boy she saw in her dream. The family remains skeptical of her theory. Steph elaborates, explaining that because death took years to reach all of the survivors, they all ended up having families that were never supposed to exist. She reveals that Aunt Brenda and her father are out of the equation since they aren't part of Iris's bloodline. Death follows the order of age, so it begins with Howard's family branch since he is the oldest. After Howard, it will be Eric, Julia, and Bobby. Then it will move on to Darlene, followed by Steph, and finally Charlie. She adds that she's hopeful they will survive because in Iris's notebook, a person referred to as JB knows someone who defeated death. Brenda, overwhelmed, leaves the room. Marty admonishes Steph. The cousins aren't too happy either, telling Steph she's turning their father's death into a conspiracy theory. That night at the tattoo shop, Eric is doing a tongue piercing on a client when his boss tells him to close up the shop. After the client leaves, Eric blasts some metal music and gets to cleaning the chair with disinfectant. He receives a message from Steph. Seeing his father on his phone's wallpaper makes him sad, so he turns on some sad music and tattoos Dad on his wrist. Moments later, a doll falls off the counter, knocking a pen holder, which then knocks over a glass. In a rush to check what happened, he knocks over the disinfectant. As he tries to clean up the glass shards, the chain from the ceiling comes loose and attaches to his nose ring. While trying to get it off, the lamp falls, setting the entire shop on fire. The next day, a disheveled Steph wakes up her brother, telling him Eric didn't answer her calls. They both decide to go to Eric's home. Just then, Charlie gets a message from his friend saying the tattoo shop burned down the previous night. Steph almost ran over Eric, getting out of the car. They both ask him if he's all right. Eric replies that he is, and that the firefighter told him he was lucky because he was wearing his leather jacket. Steph is confused because Eric should have died. She then warns Eric to be careful with the kids playing soccer, suggesting that the trimmer from the tree could fall on the person using the leaf blower. It could cause a burst of suction that blows leaves into the kids' eyes, making them miss-kick the ball straight into Eric's face. Just then, Julia walks out and joins them. Steph tells Eric to stay away from the truck, but he doesn't listen. Julia then starts jogging toward the truck, and everything happens just as Steph predicted. They rush toward the garbage truck to save Julia from being compacted, but unfortunately she dies. Steph blames herself for not getting the order right, but Brenda tearfully reveals that she didn't get it right because she had an affair with a man named Jerry. Betrayed, Eric storms off. Bobby then asks Steph if following the order, he will be next. Steph nods. Charlie then tells the group about how Steph figured out Eric's possible death and says if anyone can save them, it should be Steph. His mother agrees with him. However, Marty isn't having it. He tells his ex-wife to stay out of it. Bobby then brings up that Steph had mentioned earlier that someone referred to as JB knows a person who defeated death. Steph nods. Darlene then recalls that her mother used to send her letters in which she mentioned having a good friend named JB who works at Hope River Hospital. The group decides to head there. Just then, Eric arrives and asks Bobby to be careful. He realizes Bobby is his brother, no matter the blood, and decides to tag along with them. During the ride, Steph notices some pictures of her and Charlie when they were young. Darlene notices Steph looking at them and reveals that the real reason she left her children wasn't because she was afraid of being a mother, but because her mother, Iris, had taught her to be careful of death from a very young age. When Charlie and Steph were born, Darlene became so fearful of them even going outside that she decided to leave them so they could have a normal childhood unlike hers. They arrive at the hospital and meet the infamous JB, who reveals his real name as William John Bewer. However, he also seems to know everyone's name. He expresses his condolences over Iris's death and tells them that Iris saved his life at the hotel when he was a little boy. Years later, he says they met again and shared ideas on how to beat death. He even helped her build the cabin away from danger and even gave her the best medical care possible when she got diagnosed with cancer. Steph asks about the person who cheated death. JB answers that there are two ways one can survive death. First, by killing someone, so their lifespan will transfer to you, or by dying yourself. He adds that a long time ago, There was a woman named Kimberly who was on the death list. She died, but a doctor managed to bring her back to life, breaking death's cycle. JB warns that if someone messes with death, things could get ugly. That's why he hadn't tried these methods on Iris or himself. He gets up and smiles at them, telling them to enjoy life because they're all going to die. And after that, he will too. With that, he announces he is retiring from his job. Meanwhile, Eric tells his brother that he had to die in order to break the curse. Their eyes wander toward newborn babies, and slowly a crazy thought creeps in, but they quickly squash it. Charlie notices that both Eric and Bobby are gone. Eric assures him they're in the hospital and that if he dies, he will be resurrected. Since Bobby is allergic to nuts, Eric chooses the chocolate with nuts, according to his brother's choice. But the machine gets stuck. Eric goes behind the machine to shake it, but it almost falls on Bobby. The chocolate comes out, along with a spring in the process. Both of them go into the MRI room. Eric tells Bobby to stay while he steps out to get a wheelchair. Unbeknownst to them, the force of the door closing accidentally triggers the machine to start. Meanwhile, Darlene, Charlie, and Steph are keeping an eye out for Bobby and Eric. Eric arrives a moment later and asks his brother for the EpiPen. After grabbing it, he tells Bobby to sit down. Bobby eats the chocolate and starts wheezing. Meanwhile, the MRI's magnetic field gets stronger. When the manual override button pops up, Eric's phone gets sucked in, getting permission for the MRI. The magnetic power starts pulling in Eric's piercing, and with the wheelchair, Eric gets crushed by the MRI machine. Bobby crawls towards his brother and uses the EpiPen, while a staff working outside the MRI room notices metal objects, pens, paper clips beginning to move, slowly being pulled toward the door by the strong magnetic field inside. She enters the room. The spring comes loose from the vending machine and claims Bobby's life. The trio heads toward the room to see the devastation. Later, Steph proposes that they head to Iris's cabin, since Iris has been able to single-handedly survive death for decades. With the decision made, they hug each other. Just then, the coin from the book falls and is picked up by a grandmother passing by. Since Darlene is next on death's list, Steph decides to drive the trailer. They head toward the cabin, but when they arrive, they find the main gate is tangled with live electrical wires, one from a nearby lamp, now snared in the metal. Any contact with the gate could deliver a deadly shock, making it impossible to pass without risking electrocution. Steph slams the accelerator, and with a surge of speed, they manage to force their way. However, Steph's seatbelt gets stuck, so she asks her mother and brother to go inside first, as Darlene needs to be protected. Just then, a spark from the live wire jumps into the cabin. It hits a frayed rope, snapping it cleanly in two. The flower pot, once hanging peacefully, crashes onto the stove, knocking the gas valve open. The gas begins to leak into the cabin unnoticed at first. A moment later, the spark ignites the fumes, and the entire cabin erupts in a fiery explosion. Charlie is caught under the structure, but his mother comes and saves him. A moment later, another part of the structure falls and takes her life. The explosion causes the trailer to topple into the water. Charlie goes inside the trailer and manages to pull her out. He also gleefully tells her that by bringing her back, he has broken the curse. He adds that their mother didn't survive, but she saved them. A few days later, Charlie's ready for his graduation. So, before going to the ceremony, they drop by Jenny's house. Charlie's crushed to take her with them, while Steph is pinning a flower on his suit. She gets pre-cricked and experiences a strange sense of déjà vu. The grandmother from earlier, who had picked up the coin on the road, takes out her wallet, but the coin Iris's notebook falls and rolls down the road and gets stuck in a railway track. Then Jenny's dad arrives to greet both Charlie and Steph. He praises Charlie for saving Steph's life. Steph proudly tells him that Charlie brought her back from death, but Jenny's father disagrees, saying that Steph didn't die. She just lost consciousness, and Charlie brought her back to breathing. This changes the rules, and the train loses control on its track, taking both of their life. Please, if you like my content, support me with a like and subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day, my friend.